Action Comics 1080. Mark Waid writing with Clayton Henry on the art. So, this story has went all over the goddamn place throughout this 12 issues. This is the 11th of the 12, by the way.
It's gone on a bit long, if I'm being perfectly honest.
The weird thing for me is that I feel like it's just turned directions a little bit too quickly, because last issue was the one that me and Matt were a little bit more down on. Not that everything before then had been perfect, but it felt like they rushed through, like, taking out the Kryptonian villains a bit too easily. It felt like it just, you know, or, well, that's this issue, but I mean, the last issue, it felt like we went from, like, what the previous problem was to the new problem super quickly, and it felt rushed. Now, while some things are popping back up here that have not been in the book for a little while, like Jack Sewer showing up and whatever else, it does feel like I could have... It was almost like a bit of a Williamson was pulled, and it discarded what could have just been like an interesting idea to keep exploring, instead of, you know, turning again to like a new issue, a new problem, and a new thing to deal with.
I think part of why I feel like it's a bit too long of a story is all the whole side story with Connor and Superman.
Oh yeah, that was the weakest part of all those issues.
I know that you're gonna, you know, the argument is, oh, it's here because that's somewhat relevant in this issue when they summon the fleet, right? And he's in command, but you could cut pretty much that entire plot, and you could probably cut this whole thing down from 12 to 10 issues just like that.
Yeah, that's fair. When we were talking about those issues, I even said repeatedly that story in the middle, especially since it had a different artist, it felt like a backup that was just in the middle of the book instead of the back.
It felt like a backup story. But they already have a backup story, so...
A good backup story at that.
Yeah, I actually think the backup story has probably been stronger than the main story for
I actually agree. And it's not that I've disliked that, because I think the main story's been mostly good, and not great, but mostly enjoyable and doing some interesting things here or there.
Yeah, I think good might have been a strong word, but it's been mostly fine.
The backup's genuinely quite interesting, though, and doing some cool stuff. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, we basically go around different places, and Superman is with Mon-El taking out a villain here. You know, Power Girl's taking out a villain there who's on New Thanagar, and you know, I don't have too much to say about this. Like, the action's fine, the art's okay, but it's not like setting my world on fire by any means. The most interesting part probably is Supergirl going to Kandor and trying to argue with the Science Council to, like, hey, this, like, blacklisting of Superman that you've put on because you didn't like the choice he made, how about we don't do that? I think the most interesting thing to me about this arc is probably been some exploring further of basically the arrogance of the Kryptonian Science Council and how they didn't listen to Jor-El and force certain ideas onto him, and now that same kind of bureaucracy is getting in the way of even Superman and Supergirl getting things done. Like, and they're
even if it's not the same people, they're just still doing their own thing, being like, no, there are prisoners, don't you dare, we'll exile you.
Yeah, and now that they're out and Supergirl says, hey, right, they're all out now, we have to do something, and they're like, hey, they've escaped the Phantom Zone, they're not our problem anymore, this is your problem, so leave us out. I was like, okay, you know what, I'm starting to feel okay about Krypton being dead, because you're really clearly not making a case for its existence.
Yep, they don't help themselves, do they?
So, yeah, Supergirl walks out of there pissed, and I think it's a really good idea to have her be the character to do this, because she's the one that remembers Krypton, she grew up there, and to have her walk out of this meeting and be like, what a bunch of dicks, just kind of further emphasizes it. You know, it's because it's one thing for, I don't know, John or Connor or someone to have that opinion who never is stepped foot in Krypton. It's another for Supergirl, who actually has genuine ties to it, to be like, no, this system is flawed, corrupt, and nonsensical, and it's just a bunch of bullshit. So, felt more powerful coming from her. But like you said, yeah, the fleet, the armada of the Coons show up. It doesn't really matter, though. They just sort of show up and intimidate
They're just there.
Yeah, villains get intimidated. John's also fighting some monster, because apparently the Kryptonian that he's fighting is like a wizard or something. He's making a big monster.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Aquaman shows up and helps with the little phaser gun.
That's kind of it. So, but yeah, Jack Sewer eventually shows up at the end. Does some stuff with Superman and Mon-El, where Mon-El's like, oh no, I'm staying out and helping, even though Superman's like, no, you're dying, you're the lead poisoning, go back to the Phantom Zone. And he's like, no, I will help. And then Zadu shows up.
And that's it.
Yeah. And Zadu being alive, sure, fine. I don't know if I found him that interesting on his own, but I liked him more than Aether, though, at the very least. So if like I was worried that Aether was going to come back, and he was by far the least interesting of the two. At least Zadu felt like a character, so that's fair enough.
I'm waiting for this to be over with, if I'm being perfectly honest.
Oh, you only got one issue left, so that's not too bad.
That's what I mean. Like, but it's not terrible, but it probably didn't help that I had to read like 4 or 5 of these back to back.
Yeah, probably didn't. Because I mean, even some of the choices, because it did a whole thing in the middle where, okay, Superman's went back in time to Krypton, and I rolled my eyes when that started because I'm like, okay, this isn't that special.
Probably ended up being one of the better points of the book, though.
It did, because he actually like had conflict with the Science Council, and like I said, that ended up being some of the better stuff. But my initial reaction to that was, oh,
I groaned.
This isn't that special because he's done it in like so many comics at this point, somehow, some way. They always find a way to make him go back to Krypton.
I think it's a little bit different here, where it's like back in time. Right, because it's specifically interacting with his family. It's a little bit different to the usual. Oh, just go to a different city, or you know, go to a bottled city that's still got it's still Kryptonian culture, right? This is a little bit different.
I will say I'm going to be upset if WAID doesn't reference one of the moments yet that he's not done yet, which is one of the moments that I found genuinely amusing was when he hears like how much of a little brat Kara is when she's like 11 or whatever age she is.
He's like, oh, I can't wait to rub this in her face.
I need him to rub it in her face. I need the moment where she acts high and mighty in the final issue for him to be like, well, from what I saw from young Kara, you were a little bit of a little bitch back then. I want that moment. I'll be disappointed if we don't get it. But
I'm not sure there's much space for it. If like, there's quite a lot still to do in this last issue to wrap it up, and I don't know if we'll get that moment. Yeah,
we'll see. On a brighter note, though, Backup is still very cool. It's been very. I think there was one part of it, at least I called Lynchian, because it was doing some really cerebral stuff with the like what's happening here. There's something in her helmet, and it's like telling me parts of a story, but it's very psychological. And the
word I was going to use was ethereal.
Ethereal,
which I guess does describe a lot of Lynch's stuff as well. So yeah.
So basically the prisoner kind of is mentally connected with both Kara and Power Girl here, and she is trying to take on her brother, who is saying, no, you cannot win, you and me are a complete one. So we actually get the prisoner in like a sort of Supergirl version of her outfit with the hood and all that, and we can sort of see at different times, like in the sort of the visor of the mask, it like changes. You can see like a digital face of Kara or whoever.
And so, cool.
Yeah, it's really interesting art, really cool stuff. And Supergirl's trying to speak to her and give her a pep talk and say, no, you can't fight this. You are your own person, whatever. But ultimately it comes into this idea at the end, no, I am him. And Supergirl and Karen get bumped out of the body. And Kara says, no, you're right. You are both one, but that means you can also control him. So big ending of the issue here is she kind of consumes her brother, not by eating him, but like she kind of like warps around him as if
it's like morphs around. Yeah.
So that's kind of the big cliffhanger here at the end. I will say, like, don't get me wrong, I've been loving this. I do think it's going to read great in collection note, because only getting like the 8 pages every week has been a bit stilted, but I think it'll read really well.
By the end of it, it'll be roughly like a 4-issue kind of page count, right?
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah,
I think it's going to be like, if you read that in one sitting, it's going to be fantastic. And I think Patridge's art has been fantastic throughout all this, and it's kind of put the main story to shame every single issue. Oh yeah, like especially because obviously he's drawn Supergirl here. Like Supergirl in the main book looks fine, but Clayton Henry's not as good, and this art at the back really shines. Yeah, obviously the main book has had a few different artists over the 11 issues up to this point.
Yeah, it's mostly been Henry, and then had the different artists for the Superboys stuff in space.
Yeah, like, and it's been fine. Like, none of it's been bad, but every single issue I get to the back and I turn the page to the back up and I go, oh yeah, this is better.
Yeah,
every time.
The actual mystery of who the prisoner was and like what she'd done was genuinely quite captivating for the middle chunk of it as well. So
Yeah.
It's been good stuff. So I'm curious to see how it wraps up here, and yeah, just excited. Wonder if it'll lead to anything else, if it'll just be a completely, final story. That's it. But either way, it'd be cool. So, what are you giving Action Comics?
If it was just the main story, it'd be a 5. I think because the backup story, I have to bump it up a little bit. So I'll probably give it a 6 because of that.
I think, again, similar thinking, I'll just maybe a touch higher in general, in the sense that I'd probably have given the main story a 6. Maybe a 6.5, but I do really like the backup, so I'll go 7 overall. And be a bit more positive, but not by a great extent.